Hello everyone and welcome back to part 2 of our Killer Tunes Decksploration, where we're going to be trying to build something of a combo deck out of the tunes. It's going to be kind of difficult, but I like a combo deck more than a pure, just 3 of everything control deck, so I just wanted to see what we could do with them. First part about that is going to be figuring out what engines we can actually use with them. If you didn't watch part 1, the Killer Tunes lock you into tuners. Not just from extra deck, in which case we would be able to play things like Silvera, Riciella, we can still do Visa Samritara, but unfortunately these guys need non-tuners, and we can't special summon non-tuners from the main deck after we do the Killer Tune thing, so we kind of have to get creative here. That means that most likely these are going to be a relatively small engine that we're using alongside a bigger engine that can get into them to do the thing at the end of our combo. Full disclosure, I have already done this once. I lost the footage, unfortunately, but I built a P.U.N.K deck where I just played 6 copies of the field spell, because the field spell can get you into the full combo, and just hope to draw into it because P.U.N.K can draw 3 cards every turn. So that actually worked quite well. In pretty much every single game I was seeing a copy of Juke Joint, and then I could do the full combo at the end. It was great. I don't want to do the same exact thing a second time, though, so we're going to do a different engine this time. So the engines that I've thought of that could possibly work for this are anything that can get you to Juke Joint, so that means anything that can make Ancient Fairy Dragon can do that. Obviously, like I said, anything that just draws you a million cards, you could just play 6 copies of this card and hope to see one. Of course, then you still also have to be able to put a tuner on field to tribute for Killer Tune. That could be, maybe White Forest would work all right, but I was thinking about trying the Ancient Fairy Dragon stuff. I've played around with it a little bit. I did it with Centurions earlier, and I enjoyed that deck quite a bit, but I figure let's give it a shot here. And that's just because this deck makes Ancient Fairy Dragon quite easily, and it can search field spells, and then you can tribute a field spell to go get Juke Joint, which means that we don't even have to play the full 6 copies. We might do it anyways just because it'll be a functional extender, but we can, try it out. So, first up, let's figure out what our combo would actually look like if we're doing this version of the deck. So Regulus is going to be probably our best starter. We can also play World of Spirits. We can also play Spore. Spore is not a starter, but it is a mandatory piece, and it's probably at the as we're trying to go into the Killer Tunes, it's probably going to be what we tribute. We'll see. We need Ancient Fairy Dragon. We probably play Ancient Fairy Life Dragon could add maybe a Creebon, which we could tribute. I don't know. We'll throw everything just in the pot for right now and see what we can figure out. So let's go ahead and just very, very basic take a look at what this does. I don't think we need a discard anywhere, so we're just going to go Regulus 1-card combo. Okay, so Regulus 1-card combo. Let's see what we can do and if we need to add anything to make it work. So normal summon Regulus, that lets us add World of Spirits. We can activate World of Spirits, which allows us to add Spore the Fairy Seed, which we can summon using Regulus's effect and modulate it up to a level 3, which gives us an Ancient Fairy Dragon. We can use Ancient Fairy Dragon effect to pop the World of Spirits, now that it's been used anyways, to go get Juke Joint. All good so far. We can activate Juke Joint, we can bring back Spore, and then we don't need to modulate the level, though maybe there's extension somewhere that this can get us to. In theory, if we wanted to just do this, we could get to Centurion on top of Juke Joint, which is kind of funny, but that's not what we're trying to do necessarily. So I'm gonna make Life Dragon. Well, what does Life Dragon say? If World of Spirits is on field, you can add a light monster. That's kind of unfortunate because we swapped out the World of Spirits. Kind of gross because that means that we have to tribute the Spore, and that means that our combo deck really hasn't accomplished a whole lot here. We'll add Q to hand and then normal summon. We could also special summon via the Ancient Fairy Dragon, which is pretty cool. Summoning Red Nova. This is... now we're into just the standard Killer Tune combo. My concern is that we didn't really gain basically anything by doing all of that. We gained exactly an ancient fairy dragon, which can help us extend. I don't know. Maybe we'll look at something else, but yeah. I mean, proof of concept, the deck functions. Technically, this all works just fine. Here's a cool thing that we can do with the Ancient Fairy Dragon, though, is normally we would not be able to actually summon the mix here. We would use Rico, grab Clip, and then we'd just have to go into, like, Red Seal or Remix. But, because we have AFD on field, we can summon out the mix. And then Mix can search, like, either of our threes. We'd probably be playing more than one. And that can let us do... Oh, God. Oh, right, we can make Zarin. Interesting. So we could make a level 9 that only took tuners. That doesn't really work out. Yeah, that's kind of the problem, is just that the materials do not necessarily work out the way that we want them to. So I'm gonna go Red Seal off of these two. That triggers Clip to banish. And then we can go Loudness War. Well, that protects the AFD. This is something. There is something here. I'm not entirely certain what it is. We'll have to go look at more cards to see if we can squeeze more value out of the World of Spirits package. You know, thinking about it, it might not be that bad that that wasn't super, super impressive. What it means is that maybe we just run these packages alongside each other. That could give us extra starters and extra extension, because, like, AFD being able to summon one of these guys is really nice. And actually, I just realized that Regulus can special summon Q from hand. You don't get the effect if you special summon Q, but that means that you could use Regulus plus a Q in hand as combo to go into Ancient Fairy Dragon, which is kind of really neat. So maybe this deck just kind of works better than I'm thinking at the moment. So I'm going to actually just give it another chance with, like, numbers and try just the fully random version to see how it goes. I'm iffy on Kuribon just because it special summons itself and treats it as a tuner. It's only a level 1, though. Actually, that does mean we can make Trackmaker with it. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's not bad. So we're going to go 3 Reguluses, 3 Spore, 3 Kuribon. I don't know. Let me just look at what this looks like if we do 3 of all of these. We would want the Clips. What can Clip make in this engine? Not really anything, because these guys aren't always tuners. That's okay, though. We would be looking at something probably like this. I don't know. It's not that impressive to me. It's just kind of, this becomes Killer Tune with a small-ish other engine that can help you get to the killer tunes, but you have, what, like 13 starters anyways? 12, 13? So, like, I don't know that it really needs that, and it doesn't gain that much value from being a combo deck, so maybe we'll go back to the drawing board and try a different engine. Speaking of Ancient Fairy Dragon and the idea of level 7 engines in the first place, what about Rose Dragon? So, Rose Dragons are an engine that I enjoy quite a bit, but they're a little bit finicky. But the big thing is that they lock you into synchros, but that's not a big deal because we're pretty much only doing synchros anyways. So we could, in theory, make a Rose Dragon version of Killer Tune, and we could probably quite easily access the Killer Tune engine out of this engine. My biggest concern would just be that we're normal summon reliant, but like, it's not that bad, and we could probably have incidental synergy with Clip, getting us, I don't know, we would need a level 2 tuner. We're pretty much using 3s in this deck, so maybe not. Maybe no incidental synergies there, but that's okay. Let's give this a shot. So we will definitely need Rox Rose, a Rose Dragon, a Bramble Rose Dragon, Vengeful Witch, Black Knight. God, what else? I don't know, I'll throw red and white in there. Did I throw? Nope. So I think that would be everything for, oh no, for some reason when you type Rose Dragons, the new Hate Rose Witch does not show up. Is her name? It used to be Hate Rose Witch, now it's a different Rose Witch of some kind. Rage, because rage is a nicer word than hate, I guess. I don't know. Don't ask me anything. So we can see, oh, and then we will need the Ancient Fairy Dragon. And then I have a feeling we're going to need something to go into out of AFD and a tuner. So let's throw Chaos Angel in here for that, because I have played with the Rose Dragons enough to know that oftentimes you can use Ancient Fairy Dragon and then swap out for a 10. So let's go ahead and try this real quick. What is our starter here? I guess Rocks Rose. Okay, I messed up. I realized that we are going to need a way to actually obtain a field spell. However, in Engine, Catty Corn and Lone Fire should take care of that for us. I don't think we're going to need the Ancient Fairy Dragon now, though we could, in theory, play it to get Black Garden after we've started the Killer Toon stuff, which is kind of scary. So let's throw that in there too. So just spitballing, we'll streamline the deck later. Let's take a look at what we're actually doing here. So we can normal summon Rocks Rose Dragon, use its effect to go get Black Rose Garden, and then we can use Black Rose Garden to go fetch the White Rose Dragon. And then we can summon White Rose Dragon because we have a Rose Dragon on field, and then go for a Synchro 7. That's gonna be, let's see, it could be AFD, or it could just be Bramble Rose. I'm not sure which here. Let's go into AFD because I think we're going to be able to extend quite a bit in this combo. And then White Rose Dragon can send Vengeful Witch to grave. Vengeful Witch can discard our random card to summon Lone Fire Blossom. Lone Fire can tribute itself to summon out Twilight Rose Black Knight, and then Black Knight can bring back Lone Fire Blossom. Oh god, effects are negated. I forgot it did that. That messes this whole thing up now, doesn't it? Okay. So this is what I was trying to avoid, but this is the combo that I had in my back pocket that I knew would work. I wanted to try something new and different and do some fancy stuff, but in a reasonable amount of time, I have not been able to figure out a combo that I am happy with that won cards into the Killer Toons, besides just using the P.U.N.K engine. Now, if you have been around for a little bit, you might recognize my P.U.N.K Odeon stuff in here. Basically, we're using the P.U.N.K engine not to do their own thing, but to get us to Diabolantis, which can then get us to Ultimaya Zulkin, set the field spell that we search as part of the combo, which summons out Ancient Fairy Dragon so that we can pop the field spell to get into any other field spell in the game, while accruing value along the way. Just before we get started, as a quick note, Omega's currently bugged and for some reason will not let me set a field spell, so we're going to have to use MST just to use our imaginations, just so that we have a card to set, otherwise the combo will not work right now for whatever reason. So we're going to discard Ogre Dance to go grab Zealman, and we can normal summon Zealman to go get Rising Scale, and then we can use Rising Scale to summon itself by banishing the Ogre Dance from Graveyard, and then summon out Shirakusai. Then we can use Shirakusai to fuse with Zealman that is already on the field into Rising Carp, and then tribute Rising Carp to go get both Wagon and Deer Note. The Wagon can search the field spell that we aren't going to activate immediately because we need to set it for Ultimaya Zulkin later in the combo. That's okay, we wouldn't get any value off it anyways because we're not going into Dragon Drive, we're going into Diabolantis. That allows us to use Deer Note to bring back Rising Carp, and then the Diabolantis can send Fengli to the graveyard. Note, on this particular board, if you had started just Zealman, if you didn't start with either Foxy Toon or Ogre Dance, you cannot go into Jam Fever here because you need the Carp as material because you won't have Rising Scale on field. But since we have Rising Scale on field, we can use the Carp to go into Jam Fever to protect the rest of the combo, which is really cool. But here, Diablantis makes itself a tuner so that we can go into Ultimaya Zulkin, and then this is where we have to set a card. Normally it would be Extreme Session, but as you can see, it is bugged and not working. So just use your imagination, MST happens. That triggers Ultimaya Zulkin to bring out Ancient Fairy Dragon, and then we have to activate the session that was supposed to be set. And then AFD can pop Session to search any other field spell, so we can grab Juke Joint Killer Tune, activate that, and on this board, the only tuner we have is Fengli, which kind of sucks because I was hoping to use it to go into Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. It's probably still worth doing it because if you have an extra punk body, you can summon it using Extreme Session before you get to this point, which you can then tribute that and use Fengli to go into Crystal Wing, but true one-card combo, we only have the Fengli to tribute. So we're going to tribute it to summon or add. We're just going to add Q to hand. And right now is the last time that we can do anything before we get tuner locked. So at this point, we're probably using these two to go into like an SP or some other Link 2 just for value. The other thing we could do is we could get Q or Mix. We could get Mix. We could summon it off Ancient Fairy Dragon, use that to search Q, and then we can use Mix and AFD to go into a 9 before we do anything else, which is an interesting option. That just gets us any Synchro 9 on top of what we're doing already, so that's probably better. So it's either a Link 2 or the Synchro 9, but you can do either of those at this point. So, but for now, normal summon the Q. Q allows us to special summon Red Nova, and then we can use those two to go into Trackmaker like normal, which just does the full Killer Tune thing. Red Nova summons a Fire Fiend from deck, Trackmaker adds any Killer Tune card, and Q rips something from the opponent's top of deck. So we can banish one, put the other on bottom for funsies. What are we adding? So off of Trackmaker, we can add Clip. Yeah, I think we add Clip here. And then we can summon out the Rico effect to add Mix, which just gives us extra material from hand. Oh, and then at this point we could just summon out the Mix. We can't do a Synchro 9 now though because we are tuner locked, and there's no Synchro 9s that don't need a tuner. So we would want to do that earlier, but you know, just keeping our mind open for things that we could fit into here. But right now, I want to make Remix, and I guess Loudness War is fine. So we can go, well, yeah, Remix and Loudness War I think is what we're doing. So we'll go Loudness War, that triggers Clip to banish a random card from their extra deck, and then we can go, oh dear, I guess we summon Mix. If we're on this board, we summon Mix, but I don't think being on this board at this point in the combo is the correct thing to do. That just lets us add follow-up for next turn, and then we can use these two to go into Remix. So you can hopefully see the possibilities here. We get into full Killer Tune combo. We quite possibly have a Monster Negate ahead of time. We've got these other materials that we can use for something. And unlike the actual Killer Tune one-card combos, we got to everything. Well, that's not true, I suppose. We didn't get to the trap. But if we had, you know, basically anything in hand, we get to the trap as well. So let's go now that we have our proof of concept and we know how the deck is going to play out, how our one-card combo works, let's go put the actual deck together, make it good, figure out what we're going to do with Ancient Fairy Dragon and Zulkin, all that sort of stuff, and I'll meet you back in a second. Okay, so this is about the ratios that I'm happy with this deck. So you might immediately notice we're already at 30 cards in Engine. That's perfectly fine. I think we just go over, maybe play about 45 so that we get about 15 pieces of non-engine. If you wanted to play extra copies of the Killer Tunes in this, you probably could get away with it. My only concern is that the Punk engine demands your normal summon in most games, and the Killer Tunes only normal summon, like they don't really special summon themselves out. Um, but you know, there's an argument to be made there. I think just playing the 3 Killer Tune Synchros and 3 Juke Joints is really nice because that allows us to pivot if the Punk engine is interrupted. One of the cool things is that if we get to Diabolantis and we summon back Rising Carp and they nib us because they know that Jam Fever is about to happen, oftentimes we can just use the Extreme Session to summon out an extra tuner and then go into the Killer Tune stuff off of that, and then we've got full Killer Tune combo anyways. That's one of the things I liked about doing this deck shell with Odeon, is that they have to hit the Punk part pretty early, and if you have a starter, then you don't care, you just go into the other part of the deck anyways. So that's kind of what we're doing here. So the only things left to figure out are the 2 open extra deck spaces. We could, in theory, just not play the Zarin. I want to try it. I haven't really played with this card, but it is cool that it is an Omni Negate that can work on things that are not the most recent Chain Link. That's, like, very neat. And you can make it with only tuners, so I kind of want to play that in Killer Tune and see how that goes. A second Loudness War is possible, and maybe not a bad call. I think we just throw in IP because we can use Ultima Zolkin and the Spent Fairy Dragon for that. Like I said, you could also go into a Synchro 9. I don't know, let's look at the pool. Is there any... I mean, there's a lot of good Synchro 9s, but is there anything that stands out to me for this deck right now? So, Wolf Riot is a good generic that can act as a board wipe. Shen Shen is... we don't really want to use Shen Shen in this deck just because the Killer Tunes have effects when sent to grave. And if we're banishing everything, that's not going to work. We can't do Psychic Blaster, which is the other good generic one. So it's basically Wolf Riot, if anything. And I think SP's just a fine option instead. So we'll throw in SP. If you were trying to build a Genesis version of this deck, you could play the Wolf Riot. But this deck doesn't actually work in Genesis because Ultima Zolkin is 100 points for some reason, even though barely anyone ever uses it. That's neither here nor there. And then I guess the last card, we can use SP for our spent bodies, and just the last thing I'm going to do is put Psychic End Punisher in here, just because Psychic End Punisher allows us to close out games. So Punisher is normally the finisher for Punk, and if we, in theory, go through full combo, go to the opponent's turn, they break our board, and they pass it back to us, we can theoretically make Pep and just say, okay, well, now we have a tower out that too. I think that's the best option, mostly just because I'm not sure what else to do with the Killer Tunes. Like, there's just nothing else you can do besides exactly these guys and maybe Amritara, but this deck doesn't make Amritara super easily. So then the last thing to worry about is exactly 15-ish non-engine, and I don't know, I'm not going to think about it that much. We're just going to play some good stuff. So we'll go Ash Blossom. Yeah, we do like drawing cards, so we'll go, like, I don't know, play a couple of each of these guys. I think Imperm's good. We definitely are not a Dominus deck of any kind, like Killer Tune just can't play a Dominus card, and let alone Punk, which also just can't play a Dominus card. We'll throw Imperms in here, and then, like, Drolls and a couple of Nibs and call it a day. I don't know. Actually, this might not be correct. I don't know how much I want to fiddle with it, but remember that as you're playing Punk, a lot of the times you're going to draw a bunch of extra cards, which means that you kind of want hand traps that you can play on the opponent's turn, like good hand traps. Also, actually, with the Killer Tunes, we want Ghost Girls, so I'm gonna rewire this a little bit. We're gonna go with some Ghost Ogres and Ghost Bells. One Ghost Ogre is searchable off of the Punk engine. If it comes to that, it's probably not gonna happen all the time. Ghost Bell and Ghost Mourner aren't bad. We'll throw some Mourners in here, sure. Let's see how that goes. So take out the Mulch Armies, go up a couple of Mourners. That gives us a pretty high density of Ghost Girls that we can use with the Killer Tune clip if we happen to open it for synchro play. Well, no, we can't really do that. But we can use like Mix and Rico with these guys from hand, so they do gain quite a bit of value in our deck precisely. I don't like playing more than 2 of hand traps that have a hard once, besides like Ash, just because it's so good. So we'll just run like this suite for now, and obviously that's dependent on local meta and everything. But we'll say this is a pretty good suite of hand traps for this deck precisely. Lots of Ghost Girls because they are level 3 tuners that we can use from hand. And then 45 means that we're unlikely to open our bricks like Red Nova and Fengli. Not that we have a whole ton of bricks in this deck. It's pretty much just those 2 that we're unhappy to see. And then I think that'll do it. Let's do some test hands just to check it out, but I think this should work pretty well. So, this is kind of weird, but we have Killer Tune Synchro. Note that in a combo deck where you are using Killer Tune Synchro, you do not want to use this immediately because it locks you into tuners. The temptation is always there during draw phase to use the quick play spell so you don't get drolled, but if you do that with Killer Tune Synchro, you're kind of screwing yourself over. This hand does everything and then some, so we can use Foxy Tune, discard Droll, summon Zeoman, and that's full Punk combo, and then if the Punk combo is interrupted, we have multiple ways to get into the Killer Tune engine, multiple separate ways. We can normal summon Q, we can use Synchro to go get the field spell, and then, like, even if they completely stop us, we have a Droll to hopefully survive a turn. So this hand rips ass. This hand, less so, but this at least does Killer Tune combo, and we have 2 pieces of non-engine, so this would be something like normal summon Rico. Rico adds Clip, and then we can Synchro. We can't do Trackmaker or anything, but we can go Remix. And then we've got Clip for the opponent's turn. It's not super impressive, but this represents, what, like 4 or 5 disruptions, something like that. So it's not bad, it's just not flashy, but it works. Next hand is, well, that's 3 hand craps and 2 1-card charters, so, like, again, this hand does everything. We do fold here to Droll. That's okay. A lot of decks fold to Droll. And we don't actually completely fold to Droll just because we do have 3 hand traps to ride out the opponent's turn in the event that we go discard Ogre Dance, add Zeom, and get Drolled. So we should be fine here still. And when they activate Droll, actually kind of an interesting thing on this one, we can respond with Killer Tune Synchro, which allows us to get... I'm not sure. So, like, we can respond to Droll, which allows us to search something. I'm just not sure if there's anything we really want to... Oh, yeah. We could get Q, and then normal summon the Q, which allows us to special summon, which allows us to still set up something of a board. So... that's pretty cool about playing the 3 Killer Tune Synchros, is that as they're attempting to Droll us, we can use it to get a better starter. So that's actually very neat. Cool. A couple more just to make sure the deck functions how we want it to. This one is wackadoo, but we can at least do full Killer Tune combo. This is one of the reasons that I wanted to play so many Ghost Girls, is that we can go Killer Tune, Juke Joint, extra normal summon on Ghost Mourner, tribute Ghost Mourner to add Q to hand, and then we can do at least the full Killer Tune combo, and we already have playlists, so we don't have to worry about not being able to search that or anything. So this hand works fine, it's just not full combo. We have 12 Punk starters, and those are all full combo, but, 12 out of 45, you're going to have to expect to see a hand like this once in a while where you're just playing Killer Tune, and I think that's okay. A hand like this is much better if we're going first, at least, but, beggars can't be choosers. And this hand, this is interesting, but this hand's actually very, very good. We only have the one piece of interaction, so we have to be careful about where we use it. But just in general, that hand rips. Same thing here. The only issue is that Red Nova is a Garnet, so... Wait, can you special... Oh, no, never mind, it's not. Q can special summon from hand, that's really nice. So no, it is just a brick, so we can still do full combo, and when we get to the point where we're summoning Q, Q can just summon out Red Nova from hand. You just can't discard it for Foxy Tune. So it is a brick, but it is not a Garnet, which is very nice. So yeah, I mean, it's looking pretty functional to me. I just wish Red Nova would stay out of our hand, but otherwise, not too bad. So I'm going to call it here. Here is the deck list one more time in case you were interested in seeing it. Maybe fiddle with it on your own if you'd like, things like that. But yeah, so closing thoughts. The killer tunes are really hard to build with. I'm sure I could probably find a way to make like Rose Dragons work. And again, you can always make it work just by doing 3 Killer Tune Synchros and 3 Juke Joints and hoping to draw one and play it as like a Fiendsmith style engine. I just wanted to make an actual combo deck that got into the Killer Tunes while gaining other value along the way. So, you know, this works out. I had to rely on Punk once more, which isn't... I don't mind, but I always get the feeling that I just bring them up and use them in combos too much and people will care eventually. So, oh well. But that's gonna do it for this one, guys. I hope you liked it, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.